let's talk about 80 billion. Any guesses on what that can be?
No.
Just a week ago, I was just reading up on some aspect of climate change, and I came to know that there are 8 billion humans and 80 billion livestock on the planet, catering to the dairy and the meat requirements. And yesterday I happened to be reading an article on fashion and clothing, and the same number 80 billion pops up. Do you know that the world is consuming 80 billion new clothing items every year? 80 billion.
My God, how many zeros is that?
80 followed by 9 zeros. So then I thought, let's talk fashion today. Fashion, clothing and all that. So to begin with, I would like to know how many clothes would you buy, say a month, or once in 2 months, or once in 3 months? And do you get bored with your clothes, and then what do you do? Just to have an idea.
Maybe once in 3 months, 1 or 2 clothes. And what do I do? Do I get bored? With few, but most of it I'm quite okay with. Even I wear clothes which are quite old also, many years old. What do I do with that? That is something where I'm struggling, because I've not yet got into that system of just clearing out my cupboard and at least giving it away. So that's something I need to work on.
Yeah, that's something I'm sure that a large number of people also face. So coming back to what we were speaking about, it's around 80 billion new clothings every year, and by 2030 this number is expected to go to 200 billion in just a matter of say 4 years. And the irony is that in places like Europe, US and UK, 50 to 80% of the wardrobe lies unused. So all this effort and labor and resources go into creating something which lies unused. Now coming to the next question, what is your criteria for buying? Do you look for global, local, or is it brand name? What is it driven by?
Definitely not brand. I just go more with the feel, and the mood that I'm in at that time. So it's never anything specific. And I'm okay with local, I'm okay with anything, even a branded, anything, but it has to appeal to me at that moment.
Okay. So the question why I asked you this is because many times the clothes that we are wearing, say this is a cotton dress, supposed to be a cotton dress, the cotton for this was grown say in the US, and then it traveled to a dyeing and processing textile unit in India, went into a design unit in Europe, and finally landed in the place in the store wherever it is. And the traveling doesn't stop there. When you order online, again it has to travel from there to the place where it's being purchased. So there's a whole lot of travel included in this kind of buying and purchase of the stuff. And that is something perhaps which we will have to consider as we go along the talk. We'll see why that's a big problem. What do you do with your clothes? I mean, like the ones that you're giving away, have you ever thought what happens to it actually at the end of the thing?
Not really thought about it. I'm just hoping that somebody uses it, like we give it sometimes to the maid, and these are all not old clothes. They are good clothes. So at least hoping that she likes it and she wears it or something like that is all I have thought of. I've not really thought, is it being dumped somewhere or something like that.
Yeah, giving to a maid I guess is a good option because we know where it's going. But today what's happening is this kind of buying spree that most of the people are in, we also have this guilt. So we address this guilt by giving off some of the clothes away for charity and stuff like that. But what we don't realize is that when there is this humongous amount of waste, clothes waste happening, where is it landing? And most of it is landing in the poor nations like Africa. So Africa, they say, is seeing something like what's called as a waste colonialism, where second-hand clothes from US, UK, Europe and even China lands there. They say every second there is a truckload of second-hand clothes being either dumped or being burnt in Africa. And especially if you go to this place called Ghana, and its capital of Accra, an estimated 1,500 tons of second-hand clothing arrives every week. While some of it is being upcycled and used by people there, they say the figures according to Greenpeace, African Greenpeace, is that more than half of this in millions lands in landfills or is burned just like that or dumped into the rivers. That is the sad thing. And if you go to the market there, you see all the high brands like H&M, Tesco, Levi Strauss, all the big names are there. But sometimes, according to a reporter, some of these clothings arrive in such bad shape that they even have blood stains on them.
My God.
That is a kind of careless charity that we are practicing, just throwing away things that we don't want to see, dumping it in these kind of countries. Globally, around 85% of textiles lands up in landfills. It is the second most polluting sector after oil and gas. In terms of the dyes are polluting the water and they are responsible for about 20% of water pollution and another 35% of pollution by microplastics, because 60% of the clothes we use today are synthetic stuff. They have nylons and polyesters. They have petroleum products actually sourced from petroleum and used in these things. So you can imagine the kind of pollution that's happening. Now coming to our actual topic. Have you heard of the term fast fashion?
Not really. I think vaguely I remember my daughter asking about this, but I honestly cannot remember what it was.
Yeah.
What's that?
So as the term says, it is fast and it also includes fashion. So some of these big names, the MNCs, caught up on this idea of bringing the latest trends in fashions and producing it as quickly as possible and in huge quantities and selling it at cheap prices. So there is a kind of it's a sort of a win-win situation. The customer gets it for cheap price. These people are making a big sale, huge numbers.
It's like fast food.
Yes, exactly. So what happens, the accusation often is that the quality suffers, so that the companies want you to go back to them, buy new clothes as soon as possible. So there's no focus on the quality of the stuff. And that's what many people actually know, that this kind of consumption is not good for the planet. But then these two factors, right? One is convenience and one is the cheap prices. Pulls people back into this fast fashions. And this fast fashion actually is so fast that it just takes 10 days from designing to purchase.
Oh, wow.
That's what they're focusing on, these big MNCs. Now coming to the resources being used, any idea like how much water is used to produce a cotton shirt like this?
I'm sure it's shockingly huge.
Yeah, when you look at it, it may look small, 2,700 liters. And of course, we are talking right from the cotton being grown in the field into sourcing it, cutting it and all that. 2,700 liters for one shirt. And it's around 8,000 liters for a pair of jeans. Now, if you multiply this by the billion items that we spoke of, 80 billion pieces, and cotton is on the lower scale, you can imagine the amount of water which is being used. So when you talk of these synthetic stuff like nylon and things like that, the fiber production actually accounts for 60% of the carbon emission, and it's a transport and manufacture is 40%. And in these things, synthetic cloth like polyester and nylon, it's a very energy intensive process, and it also gives out some volatile stuffs and acids, and as I told you, it makes use of petroleum products. So you are sourcing fossil fuels and you are actually adding to the carbon emissions. Leather accessories, as we know, is another total game, right? I mean, with all the toxic ingredients involved in the tanning process and so on, and in terms of raising the cattle, feeding them, and so on and on and on. The total greenhouse gas emissions from the textile sector stands at around 1.2 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually. And this is about 8% of the total carbon emissions from all other sectors. And you can imagine now by 2030, if our production is going to go up to 200 billion, emission is also going to go up. coming to the other question, do you tend to return clothing? I mean, especially when you shop online.
No. I mean, unless the size doesn't fit, otherwise there's not much.
What about the material? Does it always come
Not
in?
always. Yeah, once maybe I can say 2 out of 10 times I might have returned it because of the material not being what I expected. But mainly it is the size. Other than that, no.
So that's, I guess, one of the disadvantages of online shopping. You do not know
Correct.
exactly what the material that's going to land and the
Correct,
feel and
correct,
stuff like that. The transport of goods across the world is responsible for a huge portion of this carbon dioxide emissions. And in 2020, the shipping and return of products accounted for 37% of the emissions from this sector.
Yeah.
So people are returning stuff, I mean, for whatever reasons. A study in a journal showed that switching from sea to air transport, because people want it faster, right, these days, increases the emissions by more than 100%. With some governments traveling around the world to and fro many times before it reaches the consumer. Finally, what do you do with the packaging material? All this comes in boxes and the covers, brown covers and plastic covers, right? Have you been doing anything about it?
About the plastic covers?
The packaging item, basically.
Yeah, the cardboard boxes and all, we just dump it in the basement and then our security guy just takes and sells it off. So that's about all I know. But the plastics, yeah, we just use it to put some waste, and that's about it. I've really not given a thought.
Yeah, 3 billion trees are pulped yearly. 3 billion, again 3 followed by 9 zeros, are pulped yearly to produce 241 million tons of shipping cartons. And this does not even include those brown covers which keep coming. And around 86 million tons of plastic packaging is produced every year. So you can imagine again, of the plastic packaging, not even 10% is recycled, though they often claim to be. So maybe it's a good idea to try and think of ways in which we can use this packaging material. For instance, the brown covers which come can actually be cut into pieces and added to your compost. It's a very good material for that. And the boxes, of course, also can be done if somebody has the patience, shredding them, making them into pieces. Very good compost material.
Okay.
Sometimes you can also use these covers and boxes to dispose of waste instead of using those plastic covers again, right? We put all our waste into plastic and again it goes, lands there, and what happens, nobody knows.
Yeah.
What do you think of thrifting, the new mantra in cities at least, where you buy second-hand clothing from each other?
I've not really experienced it. I mean, I've not gone into it, but seems good. In an idealistic way, it's a wonderful thing if the quality is good. And I honestly, I think I should be open to it. I think I am open to it. If it's going to be, why not? I mean, finally, especially I think at my age, it's not so much, but I know the younger me wanted lots of change.
Variety.
Was always looking for variety. So this thrifting works beautifully when it is like that. And I have seen my daughter's dresses which just lie around. So good quality ones, so why not?
Yeah, a lot of groups in the city today are into it. I mean, they hold events. You also have these WhatsApp group where people are exchanging items. And of course, there is a person who is overlooking the quality of these things so that we are not ending up buying soiled stuff. Some of them, they sell it for free. Some of them sell it for a nominal price. But it is picking up. But there is some amount of inhibition from people, I guess. Buying an item, different kind of thing is different. But buying a clothing which you wear, which has been worn by somebody else, is still a thing. But probably it will pick up. Unless apparel is in good condition, maybe it's a good idea not to give it away, but to use it, recycle it, upcycle it, do whatever you can do with it at home, right? Many people do that with old pieces of clothes, use it as mop and stuff like that. And that kind of reminds me of a story from Buddha's life. There was once a monk, one of the monks came and asked the Buddha to give him a new robe because the old robe had torn off. So the Buddha looked and, okay, yeah, it's true, the robe is in tatters, and he gave him a new robe. A week later, he calls the man, he just to know if he has learned his lesson. He asked him, what did you do with the old robe? So the monk tells him, I made it into a curtain. So what happened to the old curtain? Oh, it was in a bad shape. I cut it into 4-5 pieces and I'm using it as kitchen napkins. What about the existing kitchen napkins? Asked the Buddha. Oh, those were also in a bad shape. I've tied them up together and made them into a mop. What about the old mop? The old mop had become almost come into pieces of thread like pieces, which I have collected and I have made it into wicks, and that is what is burning right there in front of you.
Wow.
So that is how the Buddhism actually practiced conserving resources. Instead of wasting them, it's basically about using things consciously and mindfully. And today, even if as a religion people do not want to follow it, there are certain things that we can follow, given the fact that the earth is a limited planet with limited sources, and our population seems to be unlimited, growing and growing. And for all these wants, if we need more things, it's always good to use things consciously and resourcefully. Finally, when you are looking at clothes, if you're buying stuff, it's good to do a little bit of research on the yarns which are being used and see which are the ones which are less resource intensive. Like if you take linen, for instance, it is made from the fiber of the flax plant. So the flax plant requires very less water, very less fertilizers and inputs. So if you look at it from that point, it's a very low carbon footprint cloth when you use linen. Followed by, say, cotton. It requires a little bit more water and stuff like that. As you ascend in the list, it becomes more and more intensive on resources which we can ill afford to waste. Many of the fans, and when you're looking at these synthetic stuff, you know, they come with big brand names, and the people think, oh yeah, it's very popular, let's buy it. But as I told you, these use some of the petroleum products in them. So it can induce allergies, and there have been instances of this happening too. So it's always safe to go with a natural fiber, which is very low in terms of the intensity of its use of resources. So let's be more conscious of our choices in whatever we do. That's finally the only thing that we can say, because we cannot afford to not buy clothes.
Correct.
And it's not practical either to say that we just use 2 clothes like our parents or their grandparents used to. Things are different, things have changed, but the least we can do is use what is friendly, climate friendly, earth friendly, and try and upcycle them, recycle them, reuse them, that kind of a thing. So thank you for your inputs, and hope all of you can do some of this at least.